DevonThink features a clear algorithm that detects subtle semantic connections between distinct passages of text. These tools are smart enough to get around the classic search engine failing of specificity searching for a dog and missing all the articles that only have the word canon in them. Modern indexing software like DevonThink learns associations between individual works by tracking the frequency with which words appear near each other. And this can create almost lyrical connections between ideas. Several years ago, I was working on a book about cholera in London, and queried DevonThink for information about Victorian sewage systems, because the software had detected that the word waste is often used alongside sewage. It directed me to a quote that explained the way bonds evolved in vertebrate bodies, namely by repurposing the calcium waste products created by the metabolism of cells. At first glance, that might seem like an errant result, but it sent me off on a long and fruitful tangent into the way complex systems, whether cities or bodies, find productive uses for the waste they create. That idea became a central organizing them for one of the chapters in the cholera book. It will in fact reappear in this book in a different guise. Now, speaking, who was responsible for that initial idea? Was it me or the software? It sounds like a facetious question, but I mean it seriously. Obviously, the computer wasn't conscious of the idea taking shape, and I supplied the conceptual glue that linked the London sewers to cell metabolism. But I am not at all confident that I would have made the initial connection without the help of the software. The idea was a true collaboration. Two very different kinds of intelligence playing off one another. One carbon based, the other silicon. When I'd first captured that quote about calcium and bone structure, I had no idea that it would ultimately connect to the history of London's sewage system, or to a book about innovation. But there was something about that concept that intrigued me enough to store it in the database. It lingered and there for years in the software's primordial soup, a slow hunch waiting for its connection. I use Devonthink as an improvisational tool as well. I write a paragraph about something. Let's say it's about the human brain's remarkable facility for interpreting facial expressions. I then plug that paragraph into the software and ask Devonthink to find other passages in my archive that are similar. Instantly, a list of quotes appears on my screen. Some delving into the neural architecture that triggers facial expressions. Others exploring the evolutionary history of the smile. Others dealing with the expressiveness of our near relatives, the chimpanzees. Invariably, one or two of these triggers a new association in my head. Perhaps I've forgotten about the chimpanzee connection, and so I select that quote and ask the software to find a new batch of passage similar to it. Before long, a larger idea takes shape in my head, built upon the trail of associations the Mackin has assembled for me. Compare that to the traditional way of exploring your exploring your lives, where the computer is like a dutiful but dumb butler. Find me the document about the chimpanzees. That's searching. The other feels radically different. So different that we don't quite have a verb for it. It's riffing or exploring. There are false starts and red herrings, but there are just as many happy accidents and unexpected discoveries. Indeed, the fuzziness of the results is part of what makes the software so powerful. The serendipity of the system emerges out of two distinct forces. First, there is the connective power of the semantic algorithm, which is smart but also slightly unpredictable, thus creating a small amount of randomizing noise that makes the results more surprising. But their randomizing force is held in check by the fact that I have created all these passages myself, which makes each individual connection far more likely to be useful to me in some way. When you start a new query in DevonThink and look down at the initial results, at first glance they can sometimes seem jumbled and disconnected, but then you read through them in more detail, inevitably something tantalizing catches your eye. Jumbled and disconnected is, of course, also how we describe the strange explorations of our dreams, and the comparison is an apt one. DevonThink takes the strange but generative combinations of the dream state and turns them into software. If you visit the serendipity intro in Wikipedia, you are one click away from intros on LSD, Teflon, Parkinson's disease, Sri Lanka, Isaac Newton, Viagra, and about 200 other topics of comparable diversity. That electricism is particularly acute at Wikipedia, of course, but it derives from the fundamentally tangible nature of Tim Berners-Lee's original hypertext architecture. No medium in history has ever offered such unlikely trails of connection and chance in such an intuitive and accessible form. Yeah, yet in recent years, a puzzling meme has emerged on op-ed pages with a strange insistence. The rise of the web, its proponents argue, has led to a decline in serendipitous discovery. Consider this representative elegy to the endangered joy of serendipity, authored by a journalism professor named William McKean. Think about the library. Do people browse anymore? We have become such a directed people. We can target what we want thanks to the internet. Put a couple of keywords into a search engine and you find with an irritating hit or miss her and there exactly what you are looking for. It's efficient but dull. You miss the time-consuming but enriching act of looking through shelves, of pulling down a book because the title interests you, or the binding. Looking for something and being surprised by what you find, even if it's not what you set out looking for, is one of life's great pleasures, and so far no software exists that can duplicate that experience. In a similar piece, the New York Times technology editor Damon Darlin complained that the digital age is stamping out serendipity. Darlin acknowledged the vast influx of suggested reading that now arrives on our screen every morning via social network services like Twitter and Facebook, but claimed that those links didn't constitute serendipity. They are really groupthink. Darlin argued. Everything we need to know comes filtered and vetted. We are discovering what everyone else is learning, and usually from people we have selected because they share our tastes. When critics complain about the decline of serendipity, they habitually point to two old media mechanisms that allegedly have no direct equivalent on the web. McKean mentions the first one, browsing the stacks in a library or a bookstore, pulling down a book because the title interests you or the binding. Old style browsing and does indeed lead to unplanned discoveries, but thanks to the connective nature of hypertext and the blogosphere's exploratory hunger for finding new stuff, it is far easier to sit down in front of your browser and stumble across something completely brilliant but surprising than it is to walk through a library looking at the spines of books. Does everyone use the web this way? Of course not, but it is much more of a mainstream pursuit than randomly exploring the library stacks, pulling down books because you like the binding ever was. This is the irony of the serendipity debate. The thing that is being mourned has actually gone from a fringe experience to the mainstream of the culture. The second analog era mechanism that encourage serendipity involves the physical limitations of the print newspaper, which forces you to pass by a collection of artfully curated stories on a variety of topics before you open up the section that most closely matches your existing passions and knowledge. The legal scholar Cass Sunstein refers to this as an example of the architecture of serendipity. On the way to the sports section or the comics or the business page. You happen to call it with a story about the abuses of African diamond mines, and something in the headline catches your eye. A thousand words later, you have learned something powerful about power, about people living halfway around the world whose existence you had never contemplated before. And perhaps there is some kind of serendipitous click in that Collins. You'd been looking for a new charitable cause to support, or contemplating buying your spouse a diamond ring, and then this story drops in your lap and helps you complete the thought. You weren't looking for a story about diamond mines, but it was exactly what you needed. This is indeed a superb example of serendipity, and there is no doubt that newspapers facilitated comparable accidental discoveries countless time over countless breakfast tables during their heyday. The question is whether the transition to the web makes this sort of discovery more or less frequent. If you compare the front page of the print and online versions of a newspaper, the web actually appears to have the upper hand. The internet scholar Ethan Zuckerman compared the front page of the New York Times with that of its web cousin and found that the print version had 23 references on its front page to articles in the paper, either in the form of lead articles, or articles themselves, or short summaries teased below the fold. The front page at NewYorkTimes.com. In Zuckerman's study contained 315 links to articles and other forms of content. If the architecture of serendipity lies in stumbling across surprising connections while scanning the front page, then the web is more than 10 times as serendipitous as the classic print newspaper. Sunstein would no doubt argue that people people bypass the front door of their online newspaper, going directly to the sports or business section page that they've bookmarked, or to some other filter tailor made to their pre-existing interests. No doubt millions of people use comparable filters every morning. One could responsibly question whether people like this who have gone out of their way to avoid encountering the big picture of the newspaper front page were ever likely to stumble across the diamond mining story at the breakfast table with a print paper, or ramble through the stacks of their local library. But Sunstein and Darlin and McKean are indeed correct when they argue that the internet gives us topical filters that were unheard of in the days of mass media. But those filters are only part of the story. Filters reduce serendipity unless your particular interest lies in being surprised, which is part of the appeal of beautiful miscellaneous blogs like Boing Boing. But beyond bookmarking, filters are a second generation addition to the architecture of the web. They are not native to it. What is native to the web's architecture are two key features that have been great supporters of serendipity, a global distributed medium in which anyone can be a publisher, and a hypertext document structure in which it is trivial to jump from a newspaper article to an academic essay to an encyclopedia entry in a matter of seconds. The information diversity of the web ensures that there is an endless supply of surprising information to stumble across, and the links of hypertext ensure that we can get to that information at lightning speed, or follow trails of improvised association that would have been painfully slow to follow in the age of print media. Ironically, the problem with the web is that there's too much noise, too much chaos. That's why the filters were invented in the first place. We have filters because the web has unleashed too much diversity and surprise, not because we have too little. I happen to believe that the web as a medium has pushed the culture toward more serendipitous encounters. The simple fact that information browsing and surfing are now mainstream pursuits make a strong case for a rise in serendipity compared to cultures dominated by books or mass media. But whether or not you accept the premise that the average media consumer experiences more serendipitous discoveries thanks to the web, there can be little doubt that the web is an unrevealed medium for serendipity. For serendipity, if you are actively seeking it out. If you want to build a daily reading list of eclectic and diverse perspectives, you can stitch one together in your RSS reader or your bookmarks bar in a matter of minutes for no cost while sitting on your couch. Just as important, you can use the verb to fill out the context when you do stumble across some interesting new topic. And the great oracle of the digital age, Google is often invoked as a serendipity killed because search queries function as a kind of on-demand filter that eliminates the 99.999% of the web that is not relevant to the searcher's current interest. But when critics put Google on the side of filters, they assume that most queries are variations on them. I'm passionately interested in X and would like to learn how about it. No doubt, some unthinkably large number of Google users queries that takes that basic shape every day. But there's another type of query that is just as valuable. Someone just told me about X, and I know nothing about it, but it sounds interesting. Tell me more. This is the subtle way in which Google supports the serendipitous aspects of the web. Yes, it's true that by the time you have entered something into the Google search box, you are already invested in the topic. This is why pioneer John Battle calls John Battle calls it the database of intentions. But often that investment is directly correlated with your ignorance about the topic at hand. Someone mentions in passing the poetry of John Ashbery, or the television show Arrested Development, or the tail swallowing Ouroboros, and you think, what you think? What's the deal with that? It sounds really interesting. Imagine it's 1980 and you are sitting at your breakfast table reading the morning paper, and on the way to the sports page you stumble across an article on the front page about this provocative new idea of global warming that you have not yet encountered. You can read the article to be sure, but when the article leaves you hankering for more information and context, where do you go? To turn on the television and hope that one of the three networks or PBS is running a news item or a documentary on the topic at that exact second. Get in the car, drive 15 minutes down to your public library and check out a book on the subject. Go through all the magazines in your house, scoring their table of contents page for any climate change related articles. Let's say you live in a particularly information rich household for the standards of 1980, and you happen to have a copy of the Encyclopedia Britannica, but of course the version you bought is actually the 1976 edition, and global warming doesn't make it into the Britannica until 1994, despite the fact that the term is common enough to be mentioned in ordinary parlance throughout the 1990s. Today, of course, you would query either Google or Wikipedia for the search term global warming, and you would instantly have more information and more perspectives at your fingertips than would have been imaginable when you were thumbing the Britannica in 1980. Yes, these results are targeted to your expressed interest in a specific topic, but that interest is often something you have just stumbled across, a hint more than a passion, and because those pages are built out of hyperlinks, just a few clicks can land you in an entirely new region of interest. What you would never dreamed of visit. Google and Wikipedia give those passing hints something to attach to a kind of information anchor that lets you settle down around a topic and explore the surrounding area. They turn hints and happy accidents into information. If the commonplace book tradition tells us that the best way to nurture hunches is to write everything down, the serendipity engine of the web suggests a parallel directive. Look everything up. The premise that innovation prospers when ideas can serendipitously connect and recombine with other ideas, when hunches can stumble across other hunches that successfully fill in their blanks may seem like an obvious truth, but the strange fact is that a great deal of the past 2 centuries of legal and folk wisdom about innovation has pursued the exact opposite argument, building walls between ideas, keeping them from the kind of random serendipitous connections that exist in dreams and in the organic compounds of life. Ironically, those walls have been erected with the explicit aim of encouraging innovation. They go by many names. patents, digital rights management, intellectual property, trade secrets, proprietary technology. but they share a founding assumption that in the long run innovation will increase if you put restrictions on the spread of new ideas, because those restrictions will allow the creators to collect large financial rewards from their inventions, and those rewards will then attract other innovators to follow in their path. The problem with these closed environments is that they inhibit serendipity and reduce the overall network of minds that can potentially engage with the problem. This is why a growing number of large organizations, businesses, non-profits, schools, government agencies have begun experimenting with work environments that encourage the architecture of serendipity. Traditionally, organizations that have a strong demand for innovation have created a kind of closed playpen for hunches. The research and development lab. Ironically, R&D labs have historically functioned as a kind of ideal lockbox. The hunches evolving in those labs tended to be the most heavily guarded secrets in the entire organization, allowing these early product ideas to circulate more widely, would allow rival firms to copy or exploit them. Some organizations, including Apple, have gone to great length to keep R&D experiments sequestered from other employees inside the organization. But that secrecy, as we have seen, comes with great cost. Protecting ideas from copycats and competitors also protects them from other ideas that might improve them, might transform them from hints and hunches to true innovations. And indeed there is a growing movement in some forward-thinking companies to turn their R&D labs inside out and make them far more transparent than the traditional model. Organizations like IBM and Procter and Gamble, who have a long history of profiting from patented closed-door innovations, have embraced open innovation platforms over the past decade, sharing their leading edge research with universities, partners, suppliers, and customers. In early 2010, Nike announced a new web-based marketplace. It called the Green Exchange, where it publicly released more than 400 of its patents that involve environmentally friendly materials or technologies. The marketplace was a kind of hybrid of commercial self-interest and civic good. By making its good ideas public, Nike made it possible for outside firms to improve on those innovations, creating new value that Nike itself might ultimately be able to put to use in its own products. In a sense, Nike was widening the network of minds who were actively thinking about how to make its ideas more useful without putting anyone else on its payroll. But Nike's organizational values also include a commitment to environmental sustainability, and the company recognized that many of its eco-friendly patents might be useful in different contexts. Nike is a big corporation with many products in many categories, but there are limits to its reach. Some of its innovations might well turn out to be advantageous to industries or markets where it has no competitive involvement whatsoever. By keeping its eco-friendly ideas behind a veil of secrecy, Nike was holding back without any real commercial justification. Ideas that might, in another context, contribute to a sustainable future. In collaboration with Creative Commons, Nike released its patents under modified license, permitting use in non-competitive fields. They also created a standardized prenegotiated contract for the patents, thereby reducing the transaction costs of haggling over each patent license individually. The example scenario they invoked at the launch of Green Exchange would have warmed the heart of Stephen Jay Gould, an environmentally sound rubber originally invented for use in running shoes that could be adapted by a mountain bike company to create more sustainable tires. Apparently, Gould's tires to sandals principle works both ways. Sometimes you make footwear by putting tires to new use. Sometimes you make tires by putting footwear to new use. Green Exchange is trying to give multinational corporations some of the same freedom to reinvent and recycle that Gould's sandal makers enjoy shifting through the Nairobi junkyards.